Welcome back, everyone. We're going to step far away from tools and talk about your continuous improvement organizational and implementation strategy. This episode is the first of two parts. Today, we'll cover my organizational model and the first two groups of indicators of a great CI organization. Hopefully, you're familiar with Dr. Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. One employer required me to read this book, and I recommend it. The second habit is begin with the end in mind, and in that spirit, I wanted to step back and talk about where all this continuous improvement and process improvement ought to be leading. I've covered the mindset, traits, and derailers of a continuous improvement professional, and we've talked about process mapping as a tool to begin transforming your value delivery, but let's take a bigger step back and ask, where is all this heading? At a certain point, you realize that all the tools and techniques in your change management mindset and traits are bumping up against employee culture and the organization itself. When I talk about resistance to change, it implies that at some point we want to reduce and ultimately eliminate that resistance, which means an organization where everyone is largely on board with the modes of thinking and doing that these tools and techniques embody. And that resistance not only comes from the bottom, but also from the top and the sides. That actually may not be clear given how little we've covered, and that's fair. I'm going deep into winning hearts and minds kind of stuff, and we all know how hard that is. But what I want to do, like I did with the traits, mindsets, and derailers, is portray what good looks like. So as I share tools and techniques, we can anchor back to this bedrock. This is where a lot of Lean Six Sigma and other continuous improvement models go wrong. We get mired in the tools and the projects without calling back to the overarching vision. And honestly, I think most executives do the same thing. Sustainment is the hardest part of any project. You can buy the most expensive tree on the street, but if you plant it in the wrong soil or fail to water it, it will surely die, no matter how good of a job you did selecting it and planting it. So I hope to correct this in the coming episodes by tying, whenever possible, what we are doing with a given tool or technique back to a master plan, a master vision for what good looks like. Knowing the why is one of those good habits the United States Army taught me. Any operations order given to the smallest Army unit always connects to the bigger picture, because we trust our people to adapt the plan to accomplish the larger goal. Organizations on a continuous improvement journey ought to do this as well. So, what does the continuous improvement organization look like? I've identified 6 categories of indicators of the continuous improvement organization. These are meant to show how well your organization functions as a continually improving, from top to bottom, organization that is highly aligned to delivering on customer needs at the individual employee level. Note that different continuous improvement operating systems may think about this differently, and they may express this in terms of tools. I'm trying to move away from tools as the how and move toward the what and the why. I may provide some tool references as examples of how to accomplish these goals, but that's not my objective. Remember that questions lead, tools follow, and that also includes this continuous improvement strategy. Before I list the 6 areas, know that I have a visual for my YouTubers pulled up. I show the organizational elements pertinent to this conversation connected with these 6 categories. I represent the firm as taking in customers and employees, doing value delivery work with those inputs, and from there we achieve results. And those results accrue to customers, employees, and shareholders. It's a different organizational model for a firm than what we usually see, but I think it works for this purpose. So here are the 6 areas, roughly starting from inputs to outputs. 1. The continuous improvement employee culture. Are the behaviors and norms in alignment to continuous improvement principles? Is this culture sufficiently present? Are we sustaining it, growing it? On my map here, I have culture connecting with the employee's input. 2, customer needs, customer alignment. Are we intimately aware of customer needs, and is the organization delivering on those needs? On my map, I have customer alignment connecting with the customer's input. 3, presence and use of internal company metrics. Are the goals of the company expressed in metrics, and do those propagate through the organization? Are all efforts aligned to those metrics? On my map here, I have internal metrics connecting with the value delivery processing step. 4, processes and systems. Do we have the required processes and systems consistent with a continuous improvement organization? On my map, I have processes and systems also connecting with the value delivery processing step. 5, leadership and support alignment. Are all leaders up and down the chain aligned, on board, and supporting our journey? And what about our support functions and stakeholders and suppliers? On my map here, I show this as a frame that encircles everything that is happening in the organization. 6, outcomes. Are we seeing continuous improvement in the outcomes that matter to the customer, shareholder, and employee? This is what it's all about. If we aren't seeing results here, then we have to diagnose and potentially make some real changes. On my map, I have outcomes connecting with the results output. Let's dive into each of these. Now, I think each of these sections is worthy of a separate podcast episode. For right now, I want to lay out the broad strokes of what lives in each of these elements, and then we can dive deep later. 1, employee culture. This connects to our organizational input of employees. Our workers make everything work in the organization, so I refer to them as an input to the firm. They make everything possible. I like thinking of them as an input because there are new employees arriving every day, and our thinking has to comprehend that aspect because each new employee must adopt our culture in order for the firm to succeed. Recalling from episodes 2, 3, and 4 of this podcast, I defined the traits, mindset, and derailers of the process improvement leader. Ideally, if every employee possessed those, we would be at 5,000% of plan. I'm going to step away a bit from those and talk about culture, top to bottom, and distill all of that into just a few key norms and behaviors that we are aiming to nurture, build, and sustain. Here are 3 to talk about. 1, do employees own their work and are they engaged in it? 2, are employees empowered to change their work? Do they have autonomy? 3, is there a culture of learning? Employees in a continuous improvement environment need to own their own work. This is a simple but incredibly important cultural shift. I think this simple but seismic mind shift underpins so much of continuous improvement. What we are looking for is the sense that employees care about what they're doing. Do they find some meaning and satisfaction in what they're doing? In some jobs this comes more easily than in others, but don't make assumptions. Everyone needs to find meaning in the thing that they do day in and day out. Remember that great line from Jim Halpert in the pilot episode of The Office?
My job is to speak to clients on the phone about quantities and type of copy or paper, whether we can supply it to them, whether they can pay for it, and I'm boring myself just talking about this.
If you sell paper, how do you find meaning in your work? If you don't find meaning in it, then you certainly won't own it, which gets us to the next element. Are your employees empowered to change their work? Do they have the autonomy to do this? If we ask Jim Halpert to exert extra energy on top of his job to participate in a Kaizen team to address some ineffective element of his work, he's not going to fully participate, meaning he'll show up, but then he'll just crack jokes and occasionally break the fourth wall to look at the camera. But Kaizen is truly a key underpinning of continuous improvement. Kaizen in Japanese means continuous improvement. Kaizen is built on the premise that the people doing the work are best equipped to find better ways of doing that work. If they aren't allowed to change the work, then how will it really improve? By the boss mandating change? By outsiders who don't understand how to fix things, trying to lead a team of disinterested and unempowered employees to drive the change? That's really hard to do, let alone sustain permanently once all the attention goes away. Imagine the power of each and every person doing work, being not only comfortable finding ways to make that work more productive, but then enabling them to change the work. Instead of a hidden factory of defects, you have a hidden factory of continuous improvement. You can't put a dollar value on that. Next, is there a culture of learning? There are two elements here: the ability to broaden skills and the ability to evaluate performance and learn from it. The ability to do an after-action review of what's happened, both good and bad, is another key premise of continuous improvement. Not everyone is comfortable with criticizing performance of themselves or the team in front of others. This is a great example of a skill that must be learned. So naturally, you need a culture where people want to learn new things and learn how to be better at their work. If you offered a one-day Lean Six Sigma class at work, how many would sign up for it? Or a class on using artificial intelligence tools? On the continuous improvement journey, there is going to be a lot of new things to learn, so we need people willing to learn them. The second area, customer needs. Continuous improvement methodology and thinking is centered on the customer. Customers are internal and external, but customer needs are what we measure our processes against. Customers are the only reason we are here doing what we're doing. That often gets lost in organizations, typically when the link between customer alignment and revenue gets broken, which is a nice way to describe your typical government agency where treatment of the customer is not correlated to vehicle registration or licensing revenue. This is also true with airlines, where there are often few choices. This is not true with restaurants, which are highly sensitive to customer sentiment. One bad review and the organization is cooked. Pun intended. We are looking for companies who put the customer first, but every company says that. Here's a short video from Amazon CEO Andy Jassy, who shares an example of something that we rely on heavily today that almost didn't happen: customer online reviews.
Customer obsession. So leaders start with the customer and work backwards. They work vigorously to earn and keep customer trust. Although leaders pay attention to competitors, they obsess over customers. I'm intentionally starting with customer obsession because, frankly, everything starts with the customer and works backwards from there at Amazon. That's the way we think about our business, and it's always been true. It's always been palpable in the whole time that I've been here. And it's part of what attracted me to Amazon 26 and a half years ago, which was you could really feel that this was a culture and a company that not just talked about doing right by customers, but walked that walk. We're all customers of so many businesses, and we all know what we're treated like. And typically companies talk about being customer focused, but rarely are. And I really think Amazon has always been, and you've seen it from the beginning up to now, all sorts of examples of that. But I remember the first full year I was at Amazon, one of the big debates that year was whether or not we should have customer reviews on books detail pages. We were a books-only retailer at that point. And the debate really was because publishers didn't want us to have customer reviews because some of them might be negative. But the reality is, if you're trying to help customers make the best possible decision for themselves on whether they want a product or not, having honest customer reviews is incredibly helpful. So we decided to have those customer reviews. And
Amazon chose to put the needs of the customer above the needs of suppliers who easily could have chosen not to use Amazon as a distributor, which would have ended Amazon, a company that got its start selling books. So that level of obsession needs to be reflected in measures that are customer-centered. What is the customer's experience like? What are the customer journeys? Are our customer experiences optimized to benefit the customer or someone else? How do we keep connected with our customers? Customer surveys barely scratch the surface. Are we doing in-depth analysis of our customers? Do we have customer personas that are actively maintained, posted, and used by our teams? Are we doing ethnographic research with our customers? Are we finding customer needs the customer didn't even know he had? Another indicator, are our processes optimized to serve customers? Remember that customers are internal and external. Do the processes put the customer first? An easy check for maturity on this one is how a company treats its internal customers. Does the process even refer to them as customers? Is that service mindset there, or do the processes serve the process owners? Do they align to the work that that department or function needs? Of course, if these elements aren't present for external cash-paying customers, have no doubt that these elements are not present for captive internal customers. Another indicator is customer feedback integrated into our processes. Referring back to all the great work to develop customer-centered metrics and collecting amazing insights into our customers' needs, are our processes aligned to making those measures better, or to better deliver on those insights? For example, if at the top of the house we have Net Promoter Score as a focus for our business, then I would certainly expect that our product's return process, which is kind of a make or break situation for Net Promoter, should have some alignment of Net Promoter Score, just as a start. Our customer needs turn into critical to quality metrics, which are used as a measuring stick for our processes and products. When we charter projects, do we refer to voice of the customer verbatims to align our project to real customer needs expressed to us by a real customer? So to recap, we've laid out a model that we can use to assess the organization's continuous improvement maturity. Like George Bach said, all models are wrong, but some are useful, and hopefully so far this one is useful. This seems to be a good stopping point. So far we've addressed our two inputs, employees and customer needs. Next, we will cover the internal operations of value delivery as well as the results. In the meantime, if you find this at all interesting, please share with a colleague. You can find me at dutchcedar.com and on my YouTube channel called Dutch Cedar Consulting, where you can see video versions of all these podcasts. Please have a great and wonderful day. I hope you are all finding value in the work that you do. And as always, please strive to move ever onwards and upwards. Thank you.